Hello, and welcome to Let's Talk Charlotte, a new show where, you guessed it, we talk about our beautiful community. On today's show, we're going to meet with Commissioner Ken Doherty to get a history lesson on Charlotte County, the Board of County Commissioners' roles, duties, and responsibilities, as well as a little history lesson in the Charlotte Sports Park. Come on. Hello, Commissioner Ken Doherty. Thank you for joining us today. You've been part of this community for a number of years, came here in the 70s. Let's talk about what it was like when you came here.
Wow. Oh, good morning, and it's great to see you. Yeah, I have been here quite a while. Moved here from New Hampshire, actually, in April of 1973. Actually came down to Florida to pursue a career in commercial aviation. I had my degree in civil engineering from the University of New Hampshire, and in the summer of '72, worked in construction for a while in New Hampshire, but decided I wanted to get my continue with my aspirations to be a commercial pilot. So I was going to go to the Sun Belt. Wasn't sure I was going to actually land here on the west coast of Florida, but as soon as I did, because normally when you come down from New England, you come down I-95 and you see all the East Coast communities in Florida. Really didn't appeal to me at all. I came across the old alley in those years, and there was no I-75. Just US 41, came up and came into Punta Gorda, and it was amazing. I mean, just could tell right off the bat that this was a family-oriented community, nice environment. So that's where I started. So basically worked in construction, aviation construction, had an engineering job too at the beginning, but things really changed for me in 1979. When I was selected to be the assistant county engineer for Charlotte County. I transitioned out of aviation, got married, that's what did it, and basically I got back into civil engineering and worked for Charlotte County Board of County Commissioners as the assistant county engineer initially. What is interesting looking at the history of Charlotte County, you really have to go back and look at the state structure first. And this is where I started really learning about Charlotte County's background in '79. The state of Florida was formed in 1845, 27th state. 1885, actually, they adopted their first constitution. It took 40 years to get that developed. 1885, interestingly enough, is the same year that the town of Trebeau, I guess that's how you pronounce it, or it's currently Punta Gorda, was formed. And then basically the big transition took place for Charlotte County, becoming a county on April, as we all know, April 23rd, 1921. We were celebrating this year the centennial. That's when DeSoto County was actually split up into 5 counties: Charlotte, DeSoto, Glades, Hardy, and Highlands County. So when you think about how enormously large DeSoto County was prior to 1921, it's pretty amazing. So then basically the state structure, the Constitution of 1885 served the state very well until 1968. And so you really, you have to look back and say, and that's about 5 years before I moved here. What was going on that caused that revised Florida Constitution? Well, it was the enormous growth that was beginning to happen, especially along the coast, both coasts of the state of Florida. So the revised Constitution was adopted by the voters on November 5th, 1968, and it included a new article. It was called Article 8. It was all related to local government. Article 8 was actually broken up into about 6 sections. Section 1 was county government, counties. Section 2 of municipalities, and so forth. Talked about consolidation, because at that time 2 major areas of the state of Florida had begun the consolidation. The local governments began consolidating: Miami-Dade and Duval, Jacksonville. So basically things were beginning to happen that resulted in the state seeing the need to provide the tools for local government to adjust to the tremendous growth. Here in Charlotte County, we had 3 major developers occurring in the 60s, and it obviously transitioned to the 70s and 80s. We had everybody knows General Development Corporation. They were the largest of the 3 main developers. Then you had Punta Gorda Isles. They not only did the city of Punta Gorda Isles project, but they also transitioned across the river to the north up into Deep Creek. And of course along Burnt Store Road, all those projects going down to the Lee County line. And then we had out in the West County, we had Rotunda beginning, the wheel out there. And that was, so that all was happening. When you look back at it, 1960, the population was roughly 12,000 people in Charlotte County. It was about 27,000 in 1970, about 58,000 in 1980. We were more than doubling our population every 10 years. It was incredible. I know we're busy now, and people, talk about the enormous growth and all the stuff that's happening. But quite honestly, from a growth rate standpoint, it was kind of unmatched back then. So being the assistant county engineer, then becoming county engineer, we had our hands full because the developers were just building roads, utilities, all that stuff for us to eventually operate and maintain. The Constitution of '68 gives you the basic framework for county government, municipal government, but you really have to look to the Florida statutes to see in particular, the specific powers and duties of the county commission as an example. And that's found in section 125.01 actually, and that's in the municipalities 166. Basically, as far as the counties are concerned, the counties have the powers and the responsibilities to take care about the county buildings, roads and bridges, levy taxes and special assessments, and enforce the Florida Building Code and things of that nature. But they can only adopt legislation that the Constitution and the Florida statutes allows them to adopt. So when you get into providing services, it became an impediment to county government. You have to go, in other words, you had to go to the state legislature and get a special act if you wanted to do something that wasn't clearly defined that you could do under the statutes. Where municipalities basically had the power to do about any kind of legislation they wanted to do unless it was prohibited by Florida law or the Constitution. So the powers of municipalities were much, much greater. Well, in the Constitution, the revised Constitution 1968, it provided for this new thing called charter government, charter county government. So the Board of County Commissioners, basically through the 70s, they could see that growth was going crazy. People were demanding services. We only have one municipality in Charlotte County, as we all know. It's the city of Punta Gorda. Lots of folks move here and they think Port Charlotte's a city. But it did try to incorporate one time, or maybe it might have been twice, but it failed. It didn't happen. But it doesn't matter. People moved here from up north, like most of us did, and they wanted services. And unfortunately, it became a lot of pressure on the county commission to try to figure out how to do that. So what they did, and I worked for the county from 1979 to 1984. I ended up being the assistant county administrator for Charlotte County, in charge of the public works type departments. And I left in the summer of '84. Well, the winter, around the holidays actually of 1984, the Board of County Commissioners decided to give a shot setting up a charter commission and see if there was an ability to actually develop a home rule charter. The benefit of a home rule charter was it gives the county government not only the county powers and responsibilities, but also municipal powers. So we sat down. There were 15 members, and I was chosen as the vice chairman of the original charter commission back in 1984, and we worked at developing our charter. It's essentially our local constitution. It defines the powers of the county government. It defines the structure of Charlotte County's government. And basically, it also defines how we interface with the city of Punta Gorda or any other future municipality, because it could be others as years go on. And also the relationship with the constitutional officers. In the revised Constitution, 1968, they call them county officers, but most of us know them as the constitutional officers. That's the sheriff, clerk of the circuit court, tax collector, property appraiser, and supervisor of elections. The charter explains how we interface, how we're related. Well, we put the charter together. It took us through 1985 to get it put together. We started off all kinds of grandiose ideas about how to, because it's a clean slate. You just start drawing this thing up. And we finally decided, let's just focus primarily on establishing home rule, because that was the main objective. Because it has to go to the voters. It has to be voter approved. It's not just something the county commission can pass and on it goes. No, the voters had to approve it. So it went to a special election on November 5th, 1985, and it was approved by the voters. It went into effect actually on January 1st, 1986. So the basic structure of Charlotte County, because we all come from other places, typically up north somewhere, and people come here and I guess they just automatically assume it's going to be similar to the way it is up north. No, it's different. And we're structured. We have an elected county commission, five county commissioners that have to live in geographical areas, 5 districts. We're voted on countywide, though. All the electors of the county get to vote for us. And we have an appointed county administrator. And that's one of the other factors or facets of charter government. The Florida statutes allows in 125.84 to actually decide, the people can decide what form of government they want under charter. And there's 3 options. The first is called county executive, where the actual person in charge of the executive branch, which we call administration here, is elected as opposed to appointed. The second option is called county manager form of government. We call it the county administrator. It's just switching out a word, but it's an appointed individual, appointed by the Board of County Commissioners. And the third option is called county chair / administrator. It's kind of a team effort, kind of like governor, lieutenant governor type thing. They're elected. Nobody has chosen that form of charter government. There are 20 of the 67 counties. There are 20 counties that have selected charters and have their charters voted by their people. What's interesting about 75% of Florida's population is in those 20 counties. And you say, well, is there a common thread? Is there a common denominator with those 20 counties? Well, what's interesting, if you look at just about all of them, they either straddle or they're adjacent to one of the interstates. I-75, I-95, I-4, I-10. There where the growth was, right? So this was the Florida legislature and the Constitution's attempt to try to figure out how to do that, because otherwise they would have been inundated over these last 50 years, with local governments coming up, please can we do this, please can we do that. Now they have the ability under charter to adopt those things and provide those services. Article 2, as I said, is the basic structure of county government. What's interesting, again, with the appointed county administrator, there are restrictions. There's a non-interference clause in the charter that prohibits county commissioners from interfering with staff. We can ask for information, but we cannot direct or ask people to perform any functions for us without going through administration. So that became an interesting transition for commissioners back in the early years of the charter, because they had been able to call directly. I can recall when I worked for the county from 79 to 84, it was not unusual for a county commissioner to call down to Public Works and ask me to go out and fix this problem or go out and pave a road or something of that nature. So all that came to a screeching halt come January 1st, 1986. But The other aspect of it is one of the other main components of the charter is the Article 4, which is amending the charter. We had to have a process in place where the document could be reviewed and amended as the Constitution can be amended. So actually there are three options. The first option is an ordinance approved by the Board of County Commissioners can happen, and then it gets put on the ballot for the voters to decide whether they agree with the Board of County Commissioners on the amendment to the charter. It's only happened once, and that occurred in 1988. And like I said, the charter went into effect January 1st, 1986, and then people started looking at the charter, reviewing it, and they said, well, you talk about how you're going to hire the county administrator and all this stuff, county attorney, but you don't say how you're going to terminate the county administrator. So that's what happened. The 1988 ordinance defines how the county administrator would be removed if necessary. So that was the first amendment I can recall. The second option is actually an initiative option by petition. The voters themselves can circulate a petition saying, well, we want to modify the charter, whatever it may be. And they have to secure 10% of the electors from the previous general election. So today, I think we had about 150,000 registered voters in the last general election in 2020. So that's like 15,000 signatures you'd have to get. You have to clearly define the question, too, that would be on the ballot. So it's a lot of work. It's never happened. Nobody's there may have been an attempt to try to do that one time, but I really don't recall. The third option on amending the charter is the Charter Review Commission, which is what is used just primarily for all the amendments that have occurred. The charter requires that the Board of County Commissioners at least every 6 years, at least 18 months prior to the next general election, convene a Charter Review Commission. It's comprised of 15 voting members and 3 alternates. The voting members, all of them, must be have been residents of Charlotte County for at least 6 months prior to being appointed, and they can only serve three times as voting members, which is interesting. I supported that amendment. I actually served on charter. Like I said, the Charter Commission in 1984, 85. I was on the first Charter Review Commission 1992, 1998, 2004, and my last effort with the charter was when I was chairman of the Charter Review Commission in 2010. And then I got elected in 2012, and that automatically prohibits, if you're an elected official, you can't participate. But the charter's been a big part of my life for many, many, many years. But that's how we amend it. The charter is an interesting tool. Again, it provides the opportunity for municipal powers for the Board of County Commissioners. I say to folks, occasionally when I speak to the groups and things like that, we really have two cities here in Charlotte County. We have the city of Punta Gorda and we have the city of Charlotte County, because we really have all the powers of a municipality. So we can provide all the services necessary to, as a city would provide. So it'll be interesting to see if the citizens ever decide to incorporate any other areas. The interesting question would be, what are you really going to gain? What services do you think you can get provided by forming in a municipality that you can't receive from the county government as it's structured right now? So that's kind of our history.
So what are some of the amendments that have been made to the Charter Commission?
One that came up right after Hurricane Charlie was a residency requirement for county commissioners. We had 2 commissioners, as I recall, from District 4, Commissioner DeBoer, Matt DeBoer, and Commissioner DeVos, Sarah DeVos. She was District 5. Their homes got ruined from Hurricane Charlie. They had to relocate. They didn't have a roof over their heads. So they had to find temporary housing. And basically, Commissioner DeBoer was successful, as I recall, eventually finding new housing in his district. Commissioner DeVos couldn't. And I think she went actually out to Riverwood, basically found a place out there and decided that's really where she wanted to be. So she was out of her district, so she had to resign. We had nothing in the structure, though, of the charter to define that, because it seemed like there needed to be in a reasonable amount of time for a commissioner under a natural disaster like that to try to find a new home, new residence in their district without getting removed. So that's one of the amendments that's currently in the charter. A very basic one that happened fairly recently was county commission agendas. Before, I think it was 2010, we adopted that change. Right now, county commission agendas are supposed to be, and they have to be, posted for the public 7 days in advance of the commission meeting. That did not exist before. It's a relatively minor change, but that's just a couple of examples of a couple of amendments that have occurred over the years.
And we're currently in charter review?
We're in charter review. In March, the board selected 18 individuals. They're moving right along. The chairman is a man by the name of Bill Dryberg. The vice chair is Bill Abate-Mateo. They've had their organizational meetings. I heard they just have selected their Charter Review Commission attorney. So they're autonomous. After we appointed them and get them going, it's hands off. They're rolling now to look at the charter, go through every section of it, every article, and just make sure and confirm that everything's okay. Historically, the Charter Review Commission, it's a large group, will break up into committees. There'll be a committee that will look at administration or the executive branch. There'll be a committee that will look at the legislative branch, which is the Board of County Commissioners. There'll be a committee that will look at the constitutional officers. And then there's usually a committee that will look at other boards and agencies, have meetings with the city council members, airport authority, school board, and so forth, just to see if they've got any ideas as to how county government could be adjusted to serve the community better. So that's their role. I think they got their committees established. I think they've had 3 general meetings, and they've got to be completed before, it's around the summer of 22. It'll be on the general election ballot in November of 2022.
All right.
Anything they want to propose.
And has there ever been a time that it's gone up in front of the citizens on a ballot and they haven't voted for it?
The amendments? Oh yeah, the charter itself is in place. The amendments, though, go through and they're voted on individually. So I can't recall all the ones that have never made it, but yeah, there's been some that have failed. Yeah, but the people decide. That's what's really interesting about it.
That is the power of it.
It's a people's document.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
All right, very good. Well, kind of on a lighter note, another thing that you've actively been involved in over the years is the Charlotte Sports Park. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, as I said before, I'm a civil engineer. I'm retired now, but back when I left the county, Public Works, in 1984, I went to work for a local civil engineering firm. And we were fortunate, I was fortunate in being selected as the civil engineer for a new baseball spring training facility out on Elgin Road called the Charlotte County Stadium at that time for the Texas Rangers. That was my first project in Major League Baseball. It was very exciting. The land, approximately 80 acres of property out there, was donated by General Development Corporation. Of course, they could see the, the business opportunity there too, providing a Major League Baseball spring training facility for Charlotte County. And I was in charge of all the site aspect, all the utilities, stormwater, parking, which is a challenge to this day, all the playing fields, all of that aspect of it. What was happening in the 80s, Major League Baseball had spring training for many years, but it was sort of, for the owners, just the cost of doing business. Send your team down to Florida or Arizona where it's warm in February and March, get them ready for the beginning of the season in April. So, but they really didn't look at it as an additional business opportunity. In the 80s, that started to change. My recollection was the first spring training facility that really went through major renovations was up in Kissimmee for the Houston Astros at that time. That was a couple of years before we did this one. So, but anyways, I'm at the new firm in late '84, And we got selected in 85, 86, we were in design, got under construction in 86 and 87, and got it done. It was quite a facility. It was also at that time there was a lot of push for higher drainage performance for these playing fields. There had been, especially with football, I mean, if you're too young to know, but you go back and look at some of the old footage of some of the up north, some of the NFL games back in the 1960s and so forth. They're like the mud bowls. I mean, it was ridiculous. So what happened is that there was, across the entire sports industry, there was a desire to improve turf, improve drainage, all that, and that's what we did out here. And it was one of the best performing stadium playing fields in Florida when it first opened up, and it's been. I'm quite proud of it. It resulted in a career change for me, really. I mean, I ended up working across the United States. When I retired, I was licensed in over 30 states and the District of Columbia. I worked on 13 Major League Baseball spring training facilities in Florida and Arizona. Worked on the new Yankee Stadium, Target Field in Minneapolis, DC Nationals in Washington, Busch in St. Louis, and NFL stadiums across the country too. So it really, that Charlotte County Stadium was my first sports project, and it just took off, and my career took off from there.
That is awesome. Now, what about the renovations that happened in 2009?
Well, I was working out in Arizona at that time. I got contacted by the architect. It was HOK Sport out of Kansas City. It's interesting, Kansas City is kind of the mecca for sports architects, and HOK Sport called and said, we just got contacted. There's an RFP on the street to renovate the Charlotte County Stadium for the Tampa Bay Rays. I think you know where that is. And I said, oh yeah, I know that piece of property pretty well. So we submitted our proposal and got selected. It was really fun to come back to the stadium. We call it now the Charlotte Sports Park, and do the renovations. It was 20 years old roughly at that point. Lots of things needed to be upgraded, and parking was not good. We had to add some handicap parking, ADA accessible parking. The stadium itself wanted to boost the seating, go up to about 7,500 seats. New seats got put in, suites got redone. The team store outside, that wasn't there before. But one of the nicest features, I think, is something that was incorporated from what we had learned out in Arizona. Arizona's desert, right? So the water table's way down. So you have the different opportunities when you construct something. You can dig a hole, a deep hole, and that's what they do out there. You come in on street level into the concourse area, then they dig down to create the seating bowl and the playing field for the stadium. Well, it also provides the opportunity to go and create a concourse that goes around the entire field and creates a 360-degree circulation. It hadn't, to my knowledge, it had never been done in Florida before, because we have, good grief, our water table is up to your ankles around Labor Day, you know, so we had to redesign. I had to redesign the field, and I had to redesign a lot of the grading, because we were building a new clubhouse at the same time to try to incorporate that 360-degree circulation, and it worked. We got it done, and you know, people I think really enjoy it. I mean, there's a lot of opportunities to sit out there by the batting cages and watch the guys and pitching, you know, bullpens and all that stuff. The tiki bar, I guess, is kind of a favorite spot for a lot of folks. But we had the seating berms too. We got the grass seating berms, created a playground for the little guys. And, you know, that's one of the most rewarding things for me is going out to, especially these smaller facilities. I worked on a lot of minor league facilities around the country too. Montgomery, Alabama, Pearl, Mississippi, Newark, Lowell, Massachusetts, Fresno, California, Albuquerque. Is seeing the families come out, and you see the little kids just having a great time, and that's what I really enjoy.
This has been a very interesting and informative conversation. Thank you for joining us today. As Charlotte County residents celebrate the centennial, it's important to learn these stories and understand the history of Charlotte County. Thank you for joining us on Let's Talk Charlotte.